Good afternoon, Virgo. Quick grounding before we start. Regret is a complicated emotion. It lives in someone privately before it ever reaches you. And just because someone regrets something doesn't mean you owe them anything. Remember that as we move through this. Now let's talk about what's actually happening. Hold still. There's something building in the emotional landscape around you that you need to be aware of. Not because it should change your day, not because it requires immediate action, but because being informed is always better than being caught off guard. Someone in your world, someone who made choices involving you, someone who handled situations in ways they're now questioning, someone who moved through your life and left an impact is sitting with something heavy. Regret, real regret, not the performative kind, not the I'm sorry you feel that way, deflection, masquerading as accountability, but genuine, sitting in their chest, keeping them up at night, regret about how they showed up with you. And that regret, it's reaching a point where it's demanding expression. Stay focused, because I'm not here to tell you that someone regretting their choices means they deserve access to you again. I'm not here to suggest that their discomfort obligates your forgiveness. What I'm here to tell you is this: there's movement in someone's internal world that's going to eventually reach your external world. There's processing happening that's going to result in some form of contact, communication, or attempt at reconnection. And you're going to need to decide how to handle that when it arrives. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. First, let's talk about what's actually happening with this person right now. Can you sense who this might be? Does someone immediately come to mind? Drop a comment if you already know who I'm talking about. Because here's what I'm tracking in the energy around this regret. This person has been doing a specific kind of reflection. The kind that only happens when you're forced to sit with the consequences of your own choices. When you can't keep blaming circumstances or other people or bad timing. When you have to look directly at your own behavior and acknowledge, I handled that poorly. I hurt someone who didn't deserve it. I made choices that served me in the moment, but cost me something valuable long term. And that's uncomfortable. That goes against the human instinct to protect our own image, to justify our actions, to maintain the narrative that we're basically good people who do basically good things. So most people avoid this kind of reflection. They rationalize, they minimize, they reframe their choices in ways that let them off the hook. But this person, they're not able to avoid it anymore. Something's broken through the defenses. Something's forced them to see clearly what they've been avoiding seeing. And what they're seeing is they messed up with you. They didn't value you properly when you were present. They didn't appreciate what you brought when you were offering it. They didn't recognize what they had until it was no longer available. And now they're sitting with that recognition, and it's creating this specific emotional state we call regret. Does this match energy you've been picking up? Let me know in the comments, because let me get more specific about what kind of regret I'm sensing. For some of you, this is someone who walked away, who ended things, who decided you weren't what they wanted, or that the timing wasn't right, or that they needed to explore other options. And they did explore those other options. They did pursue other paths. they did test whether the grass was greener somewhere else, and they're discovering that it's not. It's different, maybe, but not better, not deeper, not more fulfilling. And that discovery is creating regret. Regret that they gave up something real for something that looked appealing but turned out to be hollow. Regret that they prioritized the wrong things when making their choice. For others of you, this is someone who stayed but didn't show up, who was physically present but emotionally absent, who had access to you but didn't honor that access with genuine presence, effort, consistency. They took you for granted. They assumed you'd always be there. They treated your patience and understanding as infinite resources they could draw on without reciprocating. And now, whether because you've created distance or because they're finally developing self-awareness, they're seeing how they showed up and they're regretting it, regretting the moments they chose distraction over connection, regretting the times they dismissed your needs, regretting the ways they made you feel small or unimportant or like an afterthought. For others, still, this is someone who hurt you and didn't properly acknowledge it at the time, who caused damage through words, through actions, through choices, and either minimized it or justified it or failed to take real responsibility. And time has passed and they've had space and they've processed and they're finally able to see the impact they had without the defensive filters they had before. And they regret it. They regret the harm. They regret not handling it better. They regret not being who you needed them to be in that moment. Which scenario feels closest? Or is it something different entirely? Comment below and let me know, because here's what you need to understand about what regret actually does to someone. It doesn't just sit quietly in the background. It demands something. It creates pressure. It makes staying silent feel increasingly untenable, because regret isn't just about wishing you'd done things differently. It's about wanting to somehow address the disconnect between who you were and who you wish you'd been. And for most people, that translates into wanting to reach out, wanting to apologize, wanting to explain, wanting to see if there's any possibility of repair or redemption, or at least being released from the weight of knowing they hurt someone. So this person who's carrying regret about you, they're fighting an internal battle right now. Part of them wants to reach out immediately, wants to tell you everything they're feeling, wants to attempt some form of making amends. But another part is scared. Scared you won't receive it well, scared you've moved on and don't want to hear from them. Scared that reaching out will just reopen wounds or create new hurt. And they're oscillating between these impulses, between the desire to express and the fear of consequence, which means they might reach out tentatively. They might test the waters with something indirect. They might show up in peripheral ways before making direct contact, or they might just go for it, might send the message they've been composing in their head, might make the call they've been rehearsing. Either way, contact is probable, communication is building. Some form of expression of this regret is coming your way. Have you noticed any peripheral activity, any signs they're circling? Let me know in the comments, because I want to talk about what this communication might actually look like when it comes. It might be an apology, a direct, explicit acknowledgement of specific things they regret doing or not doing, a clear statement of, I see now what I didn't see then, and I'm sorry. Or it might be more vague, more of a, I've been thinking about you, or I've been reflecting on our time together, without directly naming what they're reflecting on or what conclusions they've reached. Or it might be dressed up as something else entirely, um, as wanting to check in, as hoping you're doing well, as random reminiscing that seems casual but is actually loaded with subtext about what they're not saying directly, and how they approach it will tell you a lot about where they actually are in their processing direct. Accountability, that suggests they've done real work. They've moved past defensiveness into genuine ownership. Vague or indirect communication, that suggests they're still protecting themselves, still hedging, still not quite ready to be fully vulnerable about what they're actually feeling. So when the communication comes, and I'm sensing it's coming, pay attention not just to what they say, but how they say it. Pay attention to whether they're taking real responsibility or still centering their own comfort. Because regret alone isn't enough. People can regret their choices and still not be capable of showing up differently. People can wish they'd handled things better without actually being able to handle things better now. Does this distinction feel important? Drop a comment if this is landing, because here's what I need you to hear about your role in all this. Their regret is their experience. Their discomfort is there to carry. Their desire to make amends or seek forgiveness or reconnect, that's their agenda. And none of it obligates you to anything. You don't have to respond just because they reach out. You don't have to accept an apology just because they offer one. You don't have to give someone another chance just because they've realized they messed up the first time. Your responsibility is to yourself, to your own peace, to your own clarity about what you actually want and need moving forward. So when this person makes contact, when they express their regret, when they attempt whatever form of reconnection they're building toward, you get to check in with yourself first. Before you respond to them, respond to yourself. Ask yourself, do I want this person back in my life in any capacity? Have they demonstrated actual change or just awareness of their mistakes? Am I considering engaging because I genuinely want to, or because I feel obligated? Ask yourself, what would honoring myself look like in this situation? What does my gut say beneath all the noise of should and shouldn't? Ask yourself, if I engage with this, am I doing it from wholeness or from wound? Am I hoping this will heal something in me that can only heal through my own internal work? These questions matter. These questions protect you from making choices from old patterns rather than current clarity. Have you been practicing checking in with yourself like this? Let me know in the comments. Because I want to address something that might be coming up for you. Part of you might be hoping this is true, might be hoping someone does regret how things went, might be wanting validation that what you experienced was real, that the hurt was justified, that you weren't imagining or exaggerating. And that's human. That's normal. That makes complete sense. but be careful about attaching too much significance to someone else's regret as validation of your experience, because you don't need their regret to know what you experienced was real. You don't need their apology to trust that you were hurt. You don't need their acknowledgement to move forward with your life. Your experience is valid whether or not they ever recognize it. Your hurt is real whether or not they ever apologize for causing it. Your right to create boundaries is intact whether or not they ever understand why you created them. So if this regret shows up, if this communication comes, if this person does reach out, receive it as information, not as the thing you've been waiting for, not as what you need to feel complete, just as data about where they are in their process, and then decide what to do with that data based on where you are in yours. Does this feel like an important distinction? Comment below if this reframes things, because here's what else I'm sensing about this situation. The regret this person is carrying, it's not just about you. It's also about them, about who they were when they made the choices they're regretting, about recognizing they weren't their best self, about sitting with the gap between who they want to be and who they actually were. And that self-confrontation, it's part of growth. It's part of becoming more conscious. It's part of developing into someone who can show up better in relationships. So in a weird way, their regret might actually be a sign of positive development, a sign that they're capable of reflection, of accountability, of growth. But, and this is crucial, growth is only meaningful if it leads to changed behavior, if it results in showing up differently going forward. Regret plus insight plus actual behavior change equals someone who might be worth reconsidering. Regret without behavior change is just someone who feels bad but will likely repeat the same patterns, because feeling bad isn't the same as being different. So if this person does reach out, if they do express their regret, if they do attempt reconnection, watch what they do, not just what they say. Notice whether their actions match their words. Pay attention to whether they're actually demonstrating the change they're claiming or just performing awareness without integration, because that's what determines whether this reconnection could be different than what came before, or whether it's just going to recycle the same dynamics with slightly different packaging. Have you learned to watch actions over words? Let me know in the comments, because I want to prepare you for different scenarios. Scenario 1, they reach out, they express genuine regret, they take real accountability, and you realize you don't want them back. You've moved on. You're in a different place now. And their regret, while validating, doesn't change your decision to keep moving forward without them. That's okay. That's allowed. You're not required to give someone another chance just because they've grown. You're allowed to honor your own journey and recognize that even if they're different, you're different too, and those differences might not be compatible anymore. Scenario 2, they reach out. The regret feels performative or incomplete. They're still making excuses or centering their own experience or not really taking full ownership, and you realize this isn't what you needed. This doesn't feel like real accountability, and engaging further would just be reopening dynamics that didn't serve you before. That's okay too. You're allowed to have standards. You're allowed to require more than vague regret. You're allowed to protect yourself from half measures. Scenario 3. They reach out. The regret feels genuine. The accountability feels real. And something in you is curious. Curious about whether this could be different. Curious about what might be possible if they've actually changed. That's also okay. Being open to possibility doesn't make you weak. Giving someone another chance from a grounded place doesn't mean you're betraying yourself. As long as you're making the choice consciously with clear boundaries and realistic expectations, all three scenarios are valid. None is better or worse than the others. They're just different paths based on different circumstances and different internal clarity. Which scenario feels most aligned with where you are? Drop a comment and let me know. Because here's what I really want you to take from this. Someone regretting their choices about you is information. It's data. It tells you something about their current state, their level of awareness, their capacity for reflection. But it doesn't dictate your next move. It doesn't determine whether reconnection is wise. It doesn't override your own knowing about what you need. So when this regret surfaces, when this person reaches out, when this communication manifests, stay grounded in yourself. Stay connected to your own truth. Stay clear about what actually serves your well-being versus what just feels familiar or validating in the moment. Their regret is theirs to carry. Your response is yours to determine. And whatever you choose it consciously. Choose it from your center. Choose it knowing that you're honoring yourself first, because that's the only way to navigate this cleanly. That's the only way to avoid falling back into old patterns just because someone's finally seeing what they couldn't see before. You've grown, you've evolved, you've moved forward, and whatever comes next, it needs to match where you are now, not where you were when they knew you before. Trust that. Honor that. Let that guide your choices. The regret is coming. The communication is building. The contact is probable. And you're ready to handle it with clarity. I don't sell futures. I build architects. No predictions, just the raw truth for the tough ones. Stay magic. Stay in the now.